my beautiful friends, and welcome back to our channel. Today we are starting a video series on how to change your mind, because it's a bit more complicated than what Instagram would have us think. It's not about just being positive or just being grateful. It's not as simple as reciting copy and paste affirmations. So in response to this dominant messaging, I've broken down the steps in changing your mind into 3 big steps: see, think, and be, and each of those 3 steps into 2 sub-steps each. Now this is all very fun, exciting, enjoyable for me because really I am just the biggest nerd at heart. I love to take concepts and ideas, I want to understand them deeply, I want to tease out all the little details, often unnecessary, I want to organize them, systematize them, and I want to teach and share them. The point of systematizing, changing your mind, and sharing this video and this video series with you is that I want you to have the tools, the skills in yourself to successfully change your mind. In particular, I want to reduce a lot of the self-criticism and self-defeating, self-sabotaging behavior and thought patterns that comes up when we try to change our mind without the full understanding of the system and the philosophy, how we work behind it. And this self-criticism and these self-sabotaging behaviors are just creating more obstacles for you, more things for you to overcome. And even though you're moving forwards, making changes, as you put up more barriers, you're not getting any closer to your goal. I see people have a go and try to execute with the best of intent and end up concluding that it's hopeless or they're hopeless because it's not working. I see people giving up early because it's not working. But all that's happening here is you're misunderstanding the process, or you haven't got the full process. You're not actually doing the real work. You're doing a misinterpretation of the work. And that is an easy fix. Understand the work, then do the work. Now, it's not your fault if you can see the value in this work, you're trying to execute the work and you're not getting the results. If you're misunderstanding the work, because while thought work is very mainstream these days, and lots of the people that you admire and look up to and they're highly credentialed and highly successful in a societal way, or even in your eyes, will be recommending and attributing their success to their mindsets, to their thought work that they've done. The thought work that got them from A to B and made them the person they are today. But a lot of us are getting all of our understanding of thought work from mainstream social media, from little snippets of quotes or advice or hacks from our social media feeds or from the internet in general. In this setting, without the context, the knowledge, the principles behind thought work, why you're doing what you're doing, and the steps to do it, of course, there are going to be misunderstandings. In practical terms, what I'm referring to here are statements or advice like, just think better. Why are you thinking that way? Just stop thinking that way. See, that's a limiting thought and stop it. Just be happy. Just look at it with a different perspective. This whole toxic positivity realm. Just be grateful. Just stop being so self-focused. Just stop focusing on the bad stuff. Just go for a walk, meditate, exercise, clear your mind. Any copy and paste affirmations or non-personalized mantras, and even meditation when it's simplified down to just meditate and you'll feel better. Now, I am sure all of these bits of advice, all of these concepts have merit behind them, and they do have the potential to absolutely improve your life. However, it's when we take them out of context and we misunderstand the message, the point of them, how to do it so it serves you, why you're doing it, and what results you can expect. The problem I see, and the problem that I want to counteract here, is that when we oversimplify things to this and we misunderstand these pieces of advice, the result for us ends up being it doesn't work. And then we feel hopeless, defeatable, we conclude we're unfixable, we conclude there's something seriously wrong with us. We quit early from otherwise helpful, productive, life-changing habits and practices because they're not working, or they're not working for us. We see this work do more harm than good. We see people spiral and deteriorate, feel more hopeless because of the fact that it's not working. And worse, we see people end up feeling more powerless, be worse off in terms of their own personal responsibility and agency in the world, which is required for us as humans to feel well and be well. So devastatingly and ironically, doing this work the wrong way can make things worse. By showing you the complexities, the multiple steps in changing your mind, I hope to re-empower you in a couple of ways. In one sense, the whole thought management thing can be quite vague, and having these sub-steps laid out for you, it's more clear what you might be able to do, where your gap might be, where your next step and opportunity for progress lies. Secondly, this is a long journey, just like changing your body, your energy, your state of mind at the gym. Changing your mind is a long journey too. And so we need to be able to see our progress along the way as feedback to know that we're going in the right direction, and to reward ourselves, to motivate ourselves to keep going. So although you might not have successfully completely changed your mind, in the sense that you can see you're now acting differently and effortlessly, I don't want that to be misinterpreted as you're not making progress or it's not working. If you have these sub-steps in your awareness, then you can see that in fact you are making progress in one or more of these areas. And it's only a matter of time and practice before you progressively reach that end result. All right, you can see how life-changing this work is. Let me outline the 3 steps and each of their 2 sub-steps in the process of changing your mind. And you can start working out where you have gaps and where you can keep improving, and you can acknowledge the progress that you're making. See, think, and be. That is your magic formula for changing your mind. Now I'll tell you the sub-steps in their entirety. We have recognize, retrieve, respect, redecide, reinforce, and reprogram. All right, my beautiful friends, let's talk about them. Within the first step, C, we have recognize and retrieve. So 1, recognize. Recognize is referring to your awareness here, your ability to recognize your thoughts and your internal state otherwise as you go about the world. So there are 2 contexts here where you might be in awareness. You might be in awareness in the moment, in real time as things are happening. That would mean you're aware of the verbatim thoughts happening in your mind, and you're seeing them as thoughts, interpretations of the world, subjective, optional, in the moment. This is advanced. It takes a lot of practice. I remember when I first started to learn about meditation, awareness, mindfulness back when I was in med school. I remember going for a walk one morning and being like, how can I be aware of my thoughts when I'm not aware of my thoughts? Where do I start here? So the second context in where you can use and practice your awareness is in retrospect. So this is where I had to start. I used coaching and journaling to look back on situations and pick out my thoughts. The thoughts that were driving my emotions, my behaviors, and my results from that situation in retrospect. So this second way is just awareness on reflection. Now this recognize sub-step, this awareness, has a few sub-skills in it itself. You also need to be able to separate your thoughts from the facts of the situation, recognizing that your thoughts are your interpretation of the world. They've been filtered through your mind. They're not purely facts. The difficulty of this should not be underestimated. Humans love certainty. Humans love to be right. We need to feel like we know and understand what's going on. Now also, we only usually have the motivation to become aware of our thoughts, to start practicing being aware of our thoughts and start separating out our thoughts from our facts if we think that it's actually going to have an impact on our life. If we see that it's actually going to change our life if we change our awareness and our thoughts. If this whole process is actually worth it in the end. And the frustrating thing about this is, until you get the awareness, you can't execute on that and see the results. But at the same time, we're saying we want to see the results so we can feel motivated to get the awareness in the first place. I was quite lucky for this because I had lots of reasons to be motivated, to be diligent with how I think and feel in the world. I had my background of depression from when I was in high school, and I was really into fitness, and lots of the fitness content podcasts I read naturally led onto mindset to maximize your fitness. And in my first year of med school, I hurt my back doing CrossFit, so I went to the GP, and he just on the side had this personal dedication to teaching people he came across about mindfulness. So he recommended I read Jon Kabat-Zinn's book and his mindfulness philosophies. So for me, there was lots of social validation and subsequent trust in this being an important practice and skill to develop in myself. So even when it was hard to get my own awareness, and even when it wasn't clear that I was getting results, or I wasn't getting any of that feedback to say that it was working, I had all this social proof and validation essentially to keep me on track. Now the final micro skill or whole skill in itself that you need to be able to hold awareness, and this skill applies to all the other sections, is emotional regulation. And that in itself is not a micro skill, it's a major skill. The thoughts that are impactful are emotive. They put you in a certain emotional state. And often the negative results that we get from our life, the behaviors and experiences that we don't like, the behaviors that we keep doing that we don't like, come from a negative emotion, which in turn comes from a negative thought. To be aware of and then stay present with that thought, you need to have emotional regulation. You need to not escape or embody, act out those negative emotions. Big skill set for another video. A typical tool that people use in this first step is meditation. Often without the philosophy behind the meditation, and people are often left doing the meditation and being like, okay, what next? Here's what's next. This is not the end, my friends. We have more seeing and thinking and being to do after the meditation, after the awareness. Step 2 of C is retrieve. So from step 1, we've captured the thought, we've zeroed in on it, and now we need to explore it, because that thought does not live in isolation. Why is it here? Why do we think it's true? How do we think it's serving us? And so on. Where did this come from? Why are we holding on to it? Why do we continue to act from this belief system, from this thought? This is a process of understanding and validating your mind's reasoning. This is the step that we'd stereotypically associate with therapy. And I wouldn't know, I'm not a therapist myself, but I'm just saying it's that stereotype that we know. It's holding the thought, sitting and pausing on it, exploring it, finding out what all the supporting thoughts and beliefs are. The time where sometimes you might need to go way back into what you've learned as a kid, or in general your socialization, or for all people, whatever evolutionary or epigenetic influence has swayed our reasoning this way. Now this step, the retrieval of the information that helps us understand and validate how we've been making these decisions up until now, doesn't always need to take a long time. Once you capture that thought and reasoning, you might be able to instantly understand, validate it, and throw it away, move on to something different. As you can progressively understand your patterns of thinking, as you can progressively easily see the cognitive distortions, what's typical for your brain to offer you, this step can be super quick and simple. Whereas you might find if there is some trauma or a lot of distress in the situation, this might be a place where you have to be a lot longer to understand and validate your perspective, how you're seeing the world, and your reasons for your decisions, the way that you're making decisions. Think. So in the second step of think, this is where metacognition comes in. This is where we're thinking about our thinking. The 2 sub-steps here are respect and reconceptualize. Respect. So I've named this third sub-step respect because what respect means to me is to give due regard. So here, the step of respect is to give due regard to all sides of the situation, to rebalance your perspective, to appreciate. To appreciate means to fully grasp the situation. We as people have a tendency to see the negative, to seek out, to be on the lookout for the negative. Anything that's potentially a threat to our safety or our livelihood. This process of opening up your perspective, seeing things in a different way, seeing all sides of the story, often has to be an active process. This is hard stuff. We're aiming to remove our bias, which is just what our brain does to make shortcuts and conserve energy. And we're aiming to counteract. We're up against what our brain knows and has done before, what it's practiced all this time, this practiced perspective, these really efficient neural pathways of seeing the world in this other negative way. So not only are we removing the bias, but we're reintroducing the other side of the story. We're rebalancing, we're giving equal airtime to the other facts of the situation, the other possible perspectives in the situation. Here we're being less biased and more objective. The second step of the think phase, and the 4th sub-step is redecide. Reconcile all the old and the new information, the new data, make a new analysis, make a new discussion, make a new conclusion and decision. This can also be challenging. Firstly, you've got a lot of information, a lot more information than what you had to deal with before. Secondly, you have to work out a way to judge that information, put merit on your reasoning. Thirdly, humans simply don't like to decide. And we don't like to change. We definitely don't like to admit that we were wrong before and want to do something different now. So it takes humility and it takes decisiveness. It takes a willingness to step into uncertainty and choose something different. You'll know you've actually decided when you're taking congruent action with that decision. That is how you know that you've made a decision and you've committed to your decision. You're taking congruent action with this new belief, this new thought that you've reconceptualized, redecided in a different way. Finally, we have the third step, B. The first sub-step in B is reinforce. This is your daily practice. So this is our fifth overall step in the whole process of changing your mind, to reinforce. Like we don't go to the gym once or go on a diet for a day and expect amazing results. We can't do that with our thought management either. This has to be a practice. It's a practice of both decommissioning that unuseful program playing, that unuseful thought that's giving you results that you don't like, and it's a practice of reinforcing, practicing this new thought that is useful because it's producing an experience or outcomes that you like. The phrase I've made here to describe this is practice makes programming, because within the step of B, we are using the principles of neuroplasticity to not only make changes in our life that influence our outcomes and experience immediately, so that these choices, these decisions, these neural pathways become easier for our plastic brain. So with time, if we keep choosing and practicing these new ways of being that are closer to our ideal self, with time, those pathways are going to be so easy and efficient that they become a default that our brain chooses and executes, even when we're not even consciously in awareness. Just like how you actively learn to drive a car in the first place, but after some time you'll jump in the car and not even think about how to put it into first, second, third, reverse. You can drive entirely from one place to another, completely unconscious to the whole process, really. So in step 5, we actively reinforce these new thoughts that are helpful. And the final step of B is reprogram. So this is where we've used neuroplasticity to our advantage. We are now driving the car the way we want to drive the car without even having to actively think about it. Our practice, our reinforcing, in many ways has become subconscious in itself. It's like the way that you don't force yourself or think about brushing your teeth each day. It's easy for you to do and you easily have the motivation to do it. Once you've reprogrammed the good stuff into your brain, in these cases you'll find it's easier to do the things than it is to not do the things. For me, for example, it's easier for me to go to the gym than to suffer from not going to the gym and all the turmoil and drama that my brain brings up when I don't go to the gym. This is your brain's new normal. This is the new energy conserving pathway in your brain. And I think you can imagine the exponential results and how much better your life could be if you can execute all the way to reprogramming. If you can complete all these 6 steps to change your mind. Suddenly, keeping up good habits and thinking well does require effort, but it doesn't have to be exhausting and effortful. You're not actually working against your brain. Through the process, you're working with your brain. This is how you make sustainable change. To recap, my beautiful friends, the 3 steps of changing your mind. To see means to recognize and retrieve. To think means to respect and redecide. To be means to reinforce and reprogram. All right, my beautiful friends, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was empowering and useful, and I'll see you guys in my next one.